Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment of C.A.B.S, if memory serves, and I hope it does. This is C.A.B.S 14, and C.A.B.S 14 marks an instance where the wheels will not be denied. The first spin, Zoku versus Deadline. I thought, yeah, that's probably fine, but I don't feel like, yes, sometimes this takes part in it. I don't feel like that today. Second spin, Zoku FF versus Zoku FF. Okay, wheels, all right, fine, I get it. We want to see the Zoku FF, or the wheels want to see the Zoku FF. Spin it again, Rainbird versus Deadline. I was like, okay, I get it. All right, I assume, we didn't dive in that far, but I assume if I had spun it again, it would have come up Rainbird versus Rainbird, which is the wheels' way of saying today is three-way Mortal Kombat, Zoku FF versus Deadline, Rainbird versus Deadline, and combat by proxy, Zoku FF versus Rainbird. I do not know who has an advantage in this today. I mean, is skid forward advantageous in this sort of environment? Is more side lug better or is less side lug better? Neither are fitted with any sort of tricksy bits. We have no selectable anythings from either. They are both in the more lightweight category. Megalithics versus Injora S4 comp pins. And we're throwing everything at it, including the kitchen sink. 3 cameras. More audio to mix. This is the painting job of C.A.B.S, because the setup, oh, I don't like that. The setup has already taken a hot minute. Ooh. Come on, come on. There we go. Good steer angle. Remember, reverses, no penalty. And when I say that, I'm not specifically talking to anyone watching. I'm kind of talking to myself. Deadline reverse is allowed. Because technically, in the spins, Rainbird only came up once, and the FF came up 3 times. FF on the course first, as I hope you can see. 3 cameras. So what we're trying to do is get it a little more natural. This is ordinarily a situation where the camera toter would be advantageous, but I do not have access to that. So we're back to guerrilla filmmaking. I don't want this to overload. No, stayed nice and flat. Very good. So we can get to about a third of the course between camera shuffles, which I think is pretty good. We can get right through here, and we've got good approach and departure. As I said, break over edge to the FF. Looks like he's not having any real difficulty. And now we get to this spot right here, which is a little bit of an interstitial, and we shift cameras. So bear with me, if you will, for the technical aspects of this. Zoku is already finding itself a little cheater angle to take. Little fence hug there. Should not have any issue here either. We should make him run outside, honestly, but we're still early on in figuring out Deadline. Like, I would think that where we just passed through there, past the pillar and post. Ooh, I like that. You know how I feel about alliteration. Pillar and post there. More points if you take the low side. So this is a good expeditionary episode to find out who goes where and what does what. Where do we place the cameras so that the cameras aren't looking at other cameras? We must maintain the illusion. Boy, I really passed through the mouth of those 3 cameras pretty fast. And then you know exactly what I will do. You can visualize future plans formulating, which is I will just make paint marks or put pins or flags on the pipe, and then we line the cameras up with the pins and or flags. I already see my route, so I think we're gonna go tree to tree. We get to this tree, we move to the next one. We get to the tree, we move to the next one. And the real joy and wonder of this will be, why is it lost? We're leapfrogging. The cameras are leapfrogging. So we start 1, 2, 3, and then 1 becomes 4, and 2 becomes 5. So they're just jumping over each other. We do have 1 more camera now that we have the in-house. We've got the new V series on the workbench. Oh, all right, 1 fall for the Zoku, going low line, which is the more difficult line in my estimation. Because, as you can see, he could have used his breakover right through here. Whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes. Ooh. This is why you want to stay out of that fence side. It is unfriendly over there. This is going to be a big drop. It's just crazy composed. I get a question recurring, which is, in your opinion, and that is what I'm offering, what is the best choice for my Phoenix? And I will continue to say the Zoku chassis, because it is a drop-in and it will absolutely elevate the level of performance. Now, if at any point you think I am going to abandon the Phoenixness of the Phoenix, and that starts with the body. As soon as that body comes off, you've kind of abandoned what makes a Phoenix a Phoenix. Even if you stick with the twin, even if you're still on the C-channel rails, if you've seen the twins here, Tomax and Zaymont, they will show you that if you throw a lightweight tuck body on it, VS410 chassis is every bit as capable as any other C-channel. Now, that said, a stock Phoenix is like 7.5 pounds. This guy, an FF, which is more VRD carbon adjacent certainly than it is Phoenix, but it is indicative of something. We're going to go off on a tangent here for a moment. The Phoenix has a strength in flexibility, while the carbon concerns itself only with performance. If your quest is that foolhardy one, which I have similarly undertaken on a level, which is I want to be able to go and drive wherever, but also do this. And as it has been pointed out to me, and I didn't kind of figure it out organically, the Phoenix is kind of that. It is not some kind of rock slayer, bro. It is heavy. The body is large. It is short travel. It doesn't have tremendously good breakover. In stock configuration of the VS410 chassis, you have basically nothing in the way of shock mounting positions, but looks real good. You can festoon it with lights. The FF, the VRD and the FF by extension are performance platforms. You've got to run a stubby kit to make a VRD with the skid forward, whether it be a Zoku FF or a hardline. So you're running an outrunner and usually a little stubby pancakey one. So that already, to me, many people might do it. I opt not to trail with outrunners. I feel like what I've done to the vehicles here that trail, submerging them to a degree, and then filling them with string moss, algae, and all other manner of detritus, that is something I would not want to do with the vehicle here that has just completed deadline with a single fall. And you know what? We're just gonna go, I'm gonna go completely by feel. Like, who felt like they did it easier, right? That was pretty good, and I think he could have gone no fall, but I made the choice to go out on the more difficult side. So will that fall go against him as Rainbird runs through? Maybe Rainbird will pick easier side. Rainbird has a narrower track. His breakover isn't as good. Let's talk about Rainbird while Rainbird's out here doing it. The first amateur tip I can offer, if this is something that you should insanely endeavor to try, set whatever number of tripods you have, set them to as close as possible to the same height. Because it makes getting that angle where one camera comes off and the next camera picks up, it makes that a lot easier. I did not have them. One was probably about 10 inches higher than the other. It's 3 different tripods. So that's your amateur tip. The pro tip is, if this is something that you think you might do in the future, buy the same tripod 3 times. That will greatly lessen the amount of math that has to go in. And then figure out your camera points. Like, I don't know, maybe stage it, come out here and trial run it. But if you're like me, and I hope that you're more stable and balanced. If you're like me, footage is footage. It's all content. So if I'm gonna come out here and I'm gonna record these boys, I'm gonna come out here and record these boys. So you're gonna get it. One might ask, unasked question, answered unnecessarily. How much have you discarded in the way of, like, you filmed an episode and then thought, nah, and then didn't put it up? I mean, we clip and we crop and we edit. And by that, I mean, during the camera transition, when cameras are moving from one station to the next, I clip that part out. We try to keep it seamless. But in terms of, did you shoot an episode and then not record it? I mean, record an episode and then not, quote unquote, air it? It has happened, let's fancy it up and say thrice. I believe it has happened thrice. In the 1,200 or so videos that are up on the channel as of this recording. So 1 in 400, for one reason or another, doesn't go. I think that's a pretty good conversion ratio. That's 99.75%. Now, you might say, you should curate better. And I don't know if I can argue outright. That's probably true. If there was a thing that I learned during learning creative writing, it's that concision is key. But at the same time, you know, we're not penning the great American novel here. We're documenting the trials and tribulations of toy cars. So if it gets tangential, it gets tangential. I have thought, we're just gonna ramble here. I have thought, what if I had to script? And no. I have ideas, and I use this as a place to attempt to make those ideas semi-coherent. If I had to plot everything out in advance, if I had to script everything, I have a format, and I know that format is in my head, and I try to stick to that format. If I had to kill the joy, I was never a, what do they, you know, they would make you do the thing where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, ABC. Why can't I remember what that's called? Like an outline. I was not an outliner. I was not a rough drafter in the sense of we're going to develop this specifically to be discarded. No. It's like writing a story, writing a poem is just like building a toy car. Ugh, I don't want this to get too high on my own supply here, but you just do it and then you work on it from there. I would much rather throw it all at the wall and see what sticks. That's how we end up with the builds that we end up with. I had every opportunity to just embrace the weaknesses of the 10 Pro as a platform when it came to Rainbird. But instead I thought, that gearbox is so heavy. What if we can build a lightweight? We have to go for the same approach with Rainbird that we did with the FF. A little more pushy right there. Should be able to drop down. Ooh, it's not a helpful bias right there. That is a tough, and like, it's basically the exact same rollout. These two feel quite remarkably similar for two radically different approaches. And if it is CBA time, if it is analysis of throwing it at the wall to see what will stick, my goodness, is the FF a lot less work. There was enough parts left over from the Rainbird project to build another 10 Pro. You can build a 10 Pro like this if you want to call this a 10 Pro. It is still 10 Pro rails, 10 Pro body, 10 Pro axles. It is no longer the gearbox. If you believe that the gearbox removes enough of the DNA/identity that it's no longer a 10 Pro, then I stick with what I've been saying for over a year now, which is I don't like 10 Pros. The only way I like the 10 Pro gearbox is when fitted to the axial portal axles, because it is just it is a heady mix of gear reductions that are forcing you to run either 4S or I run a belt drive, because you can't get a spur and pinion tall enough, low enough. You can't run a big enough pinion and a small enough spur to make it even fast, which is, for those who are often wondering, why isn't there a 10 Pro portal kit? Because you need, like, I run 2300 on a belt drive on 3S, and it's just barely fast enough to do it. It really wants like 2200 4S with typical gearing. It's built for 4S. And if they were going to do that, they should make the 10 Pro, where they eschew that gearbox for something smaller and lighter and more competition oriented. Axial has in their hands all the fixins to make a pretty extraordinary actual competition vehicle. I mean, I do not think on any level that the 10 Pro chassis is overwhelmingly suited to 100 millimeter shocks, and that applies to the straight axle as well as the portal. I run big bores on here, 2660s, 85 millimeters. I don't believe anything about the axle or the chassis is particularly suited to long travel. Get that travel down shorter, helps keep the rig a little more behaved. We got to give him a chance. Hey! And that was the chance. I think that was... Teeth look okay. They'll never look as good as they once did, but I think that was pinion prying itself away from the spur. That's FOC, folks. That is FOC. Again, if I have a takeaway... there's a couple takeaways. There's a couple takeaways that you can take here. in equal measure, a near perfect division, I consider Rainbird both a 10 Pro and not a 10 Pro. He doesn't have the gearbox. I've replaced every single axial part from the kit. It probably would have been more cost efficient to just build him from Amazon and AliExpress parts from the outset and fit him with a body that's not nearly as hideous. It should not, your car's body should not look like a pickle cut in half. And that has nothing to do with the colors. If you paint it a different color, it'll just look like a hot dog bun. So I'm not ruling out any notion that in the future, Rainbird will have, I mean, he'll still be two-tone green, but he may indeed go to a cab of some sort or a different tucked of some sort. When this body finally gives up, and it is cracked around all 4 body post holes, when it finally surrenders, we will not be replacing it with another 10 Pro shell. We'll put on something that we don't mind looking at. Something lightweight, maybe a cab, maybe a tucked, who knows? Was there a winner today? Yeah, me. Because variety is the spice of life. Both of these vehicles spark joy in their own individual ways. Do I think that one of these did it? Oh, listen to that. We got a couple teeth that are flat top. Sometimes you can clean them out with a file. So here in 14, we absolutely have the perfect outro, because in 13, our Genom versus the Tranquish, we had the old that E-clip, as I call it, which is where the front half of a VFD twin meets the rear half. There's an E-clip which secures a gear. That gear is driven by a pin. It is that E-clip, no matter how carefully you install it, you probably will knock it off at some point. And that is what happened to our Genom. It's like a 45-minute fix. If you know what it is, and the pin didn't snap, and nothing galled against anything else, it's about a 45-minute fix. So we called it a sort of a tie because of a mechanical. I think Tranquish was just a little behind performance-wise. I think our Genom, the Zoku Phoenix, had the edge on that day. Today, I don't think either of them had an edge, at least not on this course. I think Deadline proved to be an equalizer. It did flat top a spur gear a little bit, but it really didn't. I did, because I wanted to try to get him out of it. They both fell at the exact same spot. That rollover, I'm going to discount that rollover, and I'm just going to call it a tie. They felt remarkably similar going across, despite different, aside from RC4 GS's, literally everything different. Different servos, shocks, wheels, tires, axles, offsets, gearboxes, everything. They share nothing in common except for they live and sleep in the same building. Zoku FF will get, here's the thing about the FF. If you can get your hands on a VFD and a pair of axles, you can get that I maintain, that is an FF, quote unquote, out of the box. It took us 7 episodes to get Rainbird to where it is. Is the Zoku FF more capable than the 10 Pro? Yes. I will state it outright, yes. Because it does it with an ease. There's a predictability to it, and it's megalithics. So if you want another takeaway, how good are S4 comp pins? Pretty good. Very cheap. I am running a cut down dual stage in the front in Rainbird, and just the stock single stage foam in the rear, because he had a tendency to kind of push roll his tires over, because his front axle is over 1/3 of his entire weight. It's nearly half of the weight of the entire vehicle. Meanwhile, the Zoku is just a balanced, well-behaved, good boy. So that is the beauty of this. So long as it does not keep food off your table, why not have both? Get yourself a Zoku. If you don't have a Zoku, get yourself a Zoku. And he's not, if the wheels had done a little bit different of a pick, We could have gotten Zoku versus Zoku and gotten a Zoku Pro versus a Zoku FF, but we didn't get that today. We got a Canyon Pro versus a Zoku FF, and they came out pretty much side by each. I mean, if you have disagreements, I enjoy those. Invite them to the comments below. Any questions, comments, and concerns, put them in the exact same place. I take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining us here for this one. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And in between now and then, please want to all do your very best. Have a good one, everybody. Today, in 14, I'm calling it a legitimate tie. Deadline kind of lost a little bit today. Kind of a little bit. It got beat. But if it's going to get beat by rigs that I bring out here, I'm not mad about it getting beat by these two. So, all the usual things. See you next time, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.